Yesterday, we solved a system of quadratic and linear equations by graphing, and we saw some of the limitations with that. Especially if you're not very artistic, you would maybe not get the correct answer, even though you know how to graph those quadratic functions and relations. They just didn't line up the way that they should have. So we can solve them algebraically, and the way that we're going to do them, and we've learned this before, was through a process called substitution. Substitution. And remember, these were the steps to solve by substitution. First, we have to get one variable by itself in one of the equations, and then substitute that variable into the second equation, solve for the one variable we have, and then plug that back into one of the original equations, and then that will give us the missing variable. And then we write our solution as an ordered pair. So let's look at this one. We have x plus 4y equals 1 and 3x plus 2y equals negative 12. Well, in this top equation, we have x, we have 1x. So we want to get that by itself. So if we write that down over here, and then we subtract 4y from both sides, we get x equals negative 4y plus 1. So now we know that x equals negative 4y plus 1. We're going to substitute that in for x. So 3, but instead of x, we're going to write negative 4y plus 1, because that is what x equaled, plus 2y equals negative 12. Now we can solve this because we just have one variable, y. So distribute the 3, we get negative 12y plus 3 plus 2y equals negative 12. Then we can combine our like terms. Negative 12y plus 2y is negative 10y plus 3 equals negative 12. Equals negative 12. Subtract 3 from both sides. We get negative 10y equals negative 15. Divide both sides by negative 10. And y is going to equal positive 3 over 2, because a negative divided by negative becomes positive. So now we can substitute that into an equation. I would substitute it into this one in red, where we already have x equals. So x equals negative 4y, which is y is 3 over 2, plus 1. So then we can evaluate this. X equals negative 4 times 3 is negative 12. So you have negative 12 over 2 plus 1. Negative 12 divided by 2 is negative 6. So we have negative 6 plus 1, which is negative 5. So our solution is negative 5 comma positive 3 over 2, because x always goes first. It doesn't matter which one we solve for first, but when we write our answer, x needs to be first. We can use the same process to solve quadratic systems. So example 2, we have a circle, and you know it's a circle because it's x squared plus y squared, and we have the line y equals 6. And yeah, this one we probably could solve by graphing, but we could do it by substitution as well. What's nice about this one is that y equals 6. There's no x involved anywhere. So we can just substitute y is 6, so we have x squared plus 6 minus 3 squared equals 25. So we have x squared plus 6 minus 3 is 3, so 6 minus 3 squared equals 25. 3 squared is 9. So x squared plus 9 equals 25. We'll subtract 9 from both sides. X squared equals 16. And then when we square root both sides, remember when we take the square root to solve, we must have plus or minus. So x equals plus or minus 4. Now, the nice thing about our y equals 6 is that tells us the y-coordinate of our solutions. It has to be 6. So we have two solutions, 4 comma 6 and a negative 4 comma 6. Then example 3, we have y squared equals 8x and y equals 2x. Well, the second equation, we already have y equals something. So we can substitute that in for y in the first equation. Now it's important to realize that it's y squared. So when we substitute that back in, it's going to be 2x squared equals 8x. And the squared, the second power, needs to distribute to both things. So that's going to be 2 squared, which is 4. 4x squared equals 8x. All right, then we're going to subtract 8x from both sides because we want this to equal 0. So 4x squared minus 8x equals 0. We can factor out a 4x, and we're left with x minus 2 equals 0. So then we have two solutions. We have one, x equals 0, and then x equals 2. So we have to plug those into the equations. So if we plug it into y equals 2x, y equals 2 times 0, which is 0. So one of our solutions is 0, 0. And then for the other one in green, y equals 2 times x, which is 2. 2 times 2 is 4. So our y value is 4. Our other solution is 2, 4. So again, this one has two solutions. Example 4. This one is where it starts to get a little messy. We already have y by itself, so we're going to substitute that in. So x squared plus, instead of y squared, it's going to be negative 3x plus 10 squared. Notice I put that all in parentheses because that's what y is equal to. All right? We cannot distribute the squared into the parentheses because there's a plus sign in the middle of them. The other problem, we could do it because everything is being multiplied. Here we are adding, so we can't do that. You can't distribute an exponent if you're adding or subtracting inside the parenthesis. So this becomes x squared plus negative 3x plus 10 times negative 3x plus 10 equals 10. Because if I'm squaring something, I'm really multiplying it by itself. Like 3 squared is 3 times 3. So negative 3x plus 10 squared is negative 3x plus 10 times negative 3x plus 10. And then we have to FOIL this. So x squared plus 9x squared minus 30x minus 30x plus 100 equals 10. So that we can solve this, we have 10x squared minus 60x plus 100 equals 10. When we subtract 10 from both sides, we get 10x squared minus 60x plus 90 equals 0. Now we can divide both sides by 10. So divide everything by 10. Which leaves us x squared minus 6x plus 9 equals 0. Oh, that becomes so much easier because we can factor this. Two numbers that multiply to positive 9 but add to negative 6, that is x minus 3 times x minus 3 equals 0. which is simplified to x minus 3 squared equals 0. So then our solution is just x equals positive 3. So if x equals positive 3, we need to go back and substitute that in for y in our equation. So y is equal to negative 3x plus 10. So y equals negative 3 times 3 plus 10, which is going to give us 1. So our solution is 3 comma 1 because x was 3 and y was 1. So 3 comma 1. So you need to be aware of that when you are solving these quadratic systems about squaring squaring a binomial. Right. Example 5 doesn't have a y by itself yet, so I'm going to work with this negative 3x plus y equals 6. If we add 3x to both sides, it becomes y equals 3x plus 6. Now we can substitute this in for y squared. So we have 8x plus 3x plus 6 squared plus 24 equals 0. And then just like in the last problem, we have 3x plus 6 times 3x plus 6 plus 24 equals 0. So we have 8x plus, and we have to FOIL this, 3x plus 3x is 9x squared. 3x plus 6 is 18x. You have another 18x plus 36 plus 24 equals 0. So now we got to combine all of our like terms. We have 9x squared. We have 8x plus 18x plus another 18x. So that will give us 44x. And then plus 60 equals 0. So then we ask ourselves, can we factor that? And that one is so messy that by the time we start messing around and trying to figure out what the two numbers are and all of that, quadratic formula might be a little bit quicker. So x equals negative b, so negative 44 plus or minus the square root of 44 squared minus 4 times 9 times 60 all over 2 times 9. So we type that discriminant into the calculator, and we get negative 44 plus or minus the square root of negative 224 over 18. Well, because we have a negative discriminant, that tells us that we don't have any solutions, like we have no real solution. So these lines will never intersect. So no solutions. All right, on this page, I'm going to have you pause the video and try these 3 problems. Once you're done, unpause it, look at my work, and you can see where you may have made a mistake or you got them all correct. All right, so let's look at these. The first problem, the team one, once you substituted in 1 for x, that shouldn't have been too difficult. Just remember y minus 4 squared is y minus 4 times y minus 4. And then you would get 1 comma 4 because the x coordinate given to you was 1. And then we saw that the y coordinate was 4. In the second problem, once you substituted in negative x for y, you got x squared plus x minus 6 equals 0. That you can factor that to x plus 3 times x minus 2. So your solutions were x equals negative 3 and x equals 2. And then once you substitute those each in for your function, you would get one solution as negative 3 comma 3, and then the other one 2 comma negative 2. The last one, once you did all of this work and you said, okay, you can't factor it, you tried the quadratic formula, and you get a discriminant of negative 15. which meant there's no solution. So pause and check your work on that one. Right, so the ones that we're most likely going to see are going to be simpler ones, but these harder ones are here to teach you that you shouldn't just say, oh, the problem's not possible or I'm confused when it's not super simple. Persevere, think through it. You know how to solve this quadratic function. You have the tools for it. You just have to apply those tools. So thanks for watching the video. Make sure to like it and subscribe.